All right, well, this is a big story. And it's interesting because yesterday I was talking about possibly the Bears moving from Chicago. They're expected to possibly go to Arlington Heights. But a few days ago, we had the White Sox come out and say they're possibly looking at moving to the suburbs, maybe moving altogether to a city like Nashville when their lease is up. And now we had this that happened last night. Two hurt in shooting at White Sox game, did not involve altercation. So guys, when it comes to this story and what happened, it seems like if you put the pieces together, there was a stray bullet. We all know about Chicago. They do have a crime problem. Yes, there are nice parts, there's bad parts, but when you look at the location of Guaranteed Rate Field, it's always been in an iffy part of Chicago, and apparently there was a stray bullet that traveled into the stadium, possibly from almost a mile away, people are speculating, and it injured two women. Now here is a map of where the bullet potentially traveled from all the way into the left field stands, and there's videos you can see. It's really hard to make it out, but you can see people around these two ladies calling and saying, please get help, please get help. The reason that people think it traveled from so far away is because of the little damage that it did do. Both of them are said to be in stable condition. Additionally, the team said that security personnel confirmed that the situation was not result of an altercation. That's the idea. I mean, you're obviously going to hear if a bullet goes off inside the stadium, that would cause immediate panic. So to me, this is just such a bad look. The fact that there are stray bullets going around an MLB stadium, MLB is not going to like this at all. The Athletics and White Sox completed the game because this happened midway through. It was still light out when this happened, so presumably there was still a lot of game left. And they also had to cancel their post-game concert, and they initially described it as technical issues, which I do think was correct, and that's exactly what they should have done. You don't want to say, oh, there's been a shooting in and around the stadium. That would have caused a panic. So you can see when they canceled the concert, a lot of people, I guess, wanted to see this concert. They were booing. They were like, what's going on? But that's what the White Sox decided to do. But it is interesting that the game continued being played. This is just a really, really bad look, especially with everything that's going on when it comes to the Bears possibly leaving Chicago, the White Sox now a few days ago, and then we get this. It says, new this morning, a bullet that struck two women during last night's White Sox game may have dropped into the ballpark after being fired a mile away. That's interesting verbiage. They say dropped into the ballpark. It was like an accidental thing, just stray area. And when it comes to possibly where we could see the White Sox moving, I don't think they're, going to move out of Chicago, as in move to another state and become an entire different team, like a relocation. But I could see, with the crime going up, possibly them moving to a suburb. This was yesterday, all the different options for the Bears. I would say right now, if you're not following that situation, Arlington Heights is still the number one option for the Bears. But you also have Aurora, which is the biggest suburb, the biggest city in Illinois outside of Chicago. Naperville, also an option. And then you also have Waukegan, which is right on the lake. Would the White Sox consider something like that? This is a story we're going to have to continue to follow because it is a terrible look for MLB. And it's not that it's worse that it's from outside of the stadium, but it just goes to show you that people, and especially how is this going to affect the attendance? You go to a game and you get hit by a stray bullet that's from outside of the ballpark, and that's why nobody reacted, because no one even heard it, because it was fired from so far away. But there is a crime issue in Chicago. I'm not singling out Chicago. There's many different cities that have crime issues. It seems like whenever you talk about this, people immediately say, oh, there's great parts of Chicago. Yeah, we all know Chicago's a very big city, and there are extremely nice parts of it. You could go on vacation in Chicago and be completely fine if you know the areas to conversing, but there are also some really bad parts. And even before this massive crime wave that's happened recently, the location of Guaranteed Rate Field has always been a question, and it's always been like, their attendance is a little bit lower because that area is not the best. This could help the White Sox in their decision to possibly go to a suburb or maybe relocate, but I don't think they're going to relocate. I think it would be a situation where they would maybe move to a different part of Chicago. But I mean, you also already have the Cubs there taking up some of the city. You don't want to move your stadium too close to them, or you just move to a suburb in and around the city. But it's also a situation where MLB is a lot different than NFL. The Bears can move to any suburb. They could move to a suburb 40 minutes from Chicago and still sell out every game very easily because it's a supply and demand. NFL is by far the most popular sport in America. The Bears only get 8 or 9 home games per year. It is not like that for the White Sox. So the White Sox, they need an area that's highly populated because they've got a ton of different home games, and you wouldn't want to build a stadium with 81 home games per year in a low populated city, because then you're going to run into some significant attendance problems. This reminds me a little bit of the Kansas City Royals. They will be moving back closer to Kansas City with both of their ballpark designs that they're deciding between, and they will decide between one of those two designs in September. The one is right in downtown, and then the other one is just north of Kansas City, but that's kind of the difference between MLB and NFL. So it's not as simple as saying, let's just do what the Bears did. The Bears go to Arlington Heights. You know, we can go to Waukegan. We can go to Naperville, Aurora. You have to kind of calculate the attendance, the population, how many fans are we going to get at the games. But it also is a situation where even with how big Chicago is, you are sharing the city with the Cubs, of course. But those stadiums are not necessarily right next to each other either way. And we do have the headline right here: White Sox weighing stadium options, with team saying discussions haven't began because of their lease, which is up in 6 years. They're starting the initial dialogue. They're letting it leak in the news a little bit that they either want a new stadium, possibly want to move to a suburb, or maybe even leave the state altogether. And this was just a few days ago, and then this event happens. What interesting timing this is. Wow. So we will have to see what happens when it comes to the Chicago White Sox future. They're a team. It's really sad what happened to them. I mean, it looked like they had such a nice young nucleus, and it's all gotten blown up due to injuries, due to players regressing, and now it seems like they're kind of in like some weird flux where they've already rebuilt their team. It took like 3 or 4 years to do that, but after the rebuild, the team's just not good enough. So now what do? Do you rebuild again? I don't know. I mean, the only saving grace for the White Sox in terms of the future, at least the AL Central is just a horrible division. So you're always pretty much going to be in the AL Central as long as you remain around 500. But that is the updated story last night on the White Sox. How does this affect the future in terms of them possibly moving? I mean, you could just say it's a one-off event. But when is the last time we've seen 2 fans go to an MLB game and have a stray bullet hit them and injure them, and the only reason it wasn't catastrophic is because the bullet was from over a mile away from outside the stadium? And this happens in left field in the bleachers. So it is just a really, really weird situation, and they end up canceling the concert, saying, you know, there's technical difficulties, whatever. They didn't want to cause a panic or anything like that. So, I do think that is the right decision in terms of that. But we will have to keep the situation updated. You know, obviously, it's very, a good thing that it's not catastrophic or anything like that. That would have been horrific for Chicago and for MLB. And I do think this probably completely wipes off the idea that Guaranteed Rate Field, well, I guess I'm not going to go that far. You don't want to overreact, but there is the idea it's either a renovation or a new stadium. Where would they move? Possibly to a different part of Chicago, possibly to a suburb close to Chicago, a more safer area. Or maybe in 3 or 4 years when the decision is made, the situation kind of gets forgotten about and they stay in Chicago and just build a new stadium or try and do some type of major renovation right before the lease is up. But that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.